Fancy something a bit different on a Friday evening? Join me, Kaval Vaseer, on BBC Radio Nottingham for 3 hours of wall-to-wall bhangra. For debates, news and views of what's happening on the Nottingham Asian scene, join me, Kaval Vaseer, every Friday evening from 7 till 10 on Dhamaka, Nottingham's premier Asian programme.
And that's what he sounded like on the radio and the Dhamaka show, which he presented for many, many years for young audiences and listeners in Nottingham. Kaval Vaseer, who sadly passed away on Friday morning. It was with a heavy heart, tears in our eyes and complete sadness that we had to announce the passing of our colleague Kaval Vaseer. He succumbed to the dreaded cancer in the early hours of Friday morning. He'd been battling bowel cancer, and despite 2 major surgeries, it got the better of him after 5 years. But in life, Kaval was that rare human being who loved life and filled other people's lives with the same positivity that he lived his own life. He could fill a room with his infectious personality. He was not only my former co-presenter on the Ajkal show, but also a very dear personal friend. He was one of only a few people with whom I could talk about anything, everything, and absolutely nothing, all at the same time. And we often used to joke that maybe that sitcom, Men Behaving Badly, was based on us. And those are the kind of conversations we used to have. But Kaval was born in Liverpool, and his family then went back to live in India when he was a toddler, about 3 years old. And he grew up in the city of Bhopal in India, went to various boarding schools and lived a fantastic life from some of the stories that he told us. And in 1982-83, he and his elder sister decided to come back to England and resume their higher studies here in the UK while his family, his parents, remained in India. And for some reason, out of all the cities in the UK, he decided that Derby was going to be his home. That was where he was going to come and live. And he lived on Porter Road in the Normanton area of the city. I first met Kaval in the early 80s when he arrived in the UK from Bhopal and was absolutely taken in by his warm and engaging personality. He was so different from anyone else I knew, and there were traits in his character that really gelled with me. He could speak various languages. He kind of lived diversity. He just took everybody into his confidence. It didn't matter who you were. He spoke perfect Hindi, but not so perfect Punjabi, and we learned so much about him, particularly what it was like growing up, because most of us came to the UK at a very early age, but he lived most of his adult life and his teenage years in India, and we wanted to know what it was like growing up in that country. And he would tell us all these stories. Eventually, we perfected his Punjabi, and he wasn't so successful in perfecting our Hindi, but it was great to learn so much from him. He was a fantastic communicator and a great storyteller, essential skills for a broadcaster, which was going to be his kind of secondary career. Kaval had that rare ability to strike a chord with virtually anyone he came across. And to this day, I've not come across anyone with such an endearing social personality who people would automatically gravitate to. He was like the nucleus of a group of people. Everybody kind of went through him in order to communicate with everybody else. His other great quality was his zest for life, his positivity. And despite some unbearable sadness he had to endure, particularly the loss of his 11-year-old son, he still managed to get every drop out of life right to the end, and he lived it positively. And somebody even said that, when he asks you how you are, and if you say fine, he'll often say, well, why fine? Why not excellent? And that really summed up the kind of personality he was. I'm so glad I got to spend a few hours with him just before he passed away. And I will remember that moment, that kind of, final handshake and just letting go of that hand and walking out of his room and just glancing back, knowing what was on its way, that image will probably stay with me for a very, very long time. And even now, I remember Kaval as that cheeky chap who I always had trouble keeping up on the radio when we presented together. Here is Kaval and myself presenting the Ajkal show on BBC Radio Derby on the 4th of May, 1984.
Yes, the tune looks and sounds a bit familiar. You guessed it right, it's time for Ajkal, and welcome again to this week's edition of Ajkal. We've got a superb show lined up for you all. So stay well clear and enjoy this 45-minute show with me, Kaval Vaseer and Satvinder Rana.
Yes, you're listening to the charismatic sounds of Radio Derby. Ajkal on air once again with your request, dedications, music, film review and a special interview with Indian singing star Asha Bhosle. That's all coming up for you in the next 45 minutes. But to start everything, here's a song from Amne Samne, Main Tu Ban Gaya.
Isn't that nice? And if you just joined us, a very warm welcome to you. You're listening to BBC Radio Derby on 269 meters medium wave. That's 1116 kilohertz, 94.2 and 96.5 VHF.
And that's how he sounded like on the 4th of May 1984 when we presented the Ajkal show here in Derby. And of course, he left Derby in the kind of mid to late 80s and went to Nottingham. And from about 1987, he presented the Marca show in Nottingham. Now, this is Kaval capturing the atmosphere of the 21st Nottingham Mela in June 2009, which was held that year in the historic Old Market Square.
The title track from the latest album is called Rambo!
Well, I'm here at the Old Market Square for the celebration of the 21st Mela in Nottingham. And Mela back in India is very much a celebration after the cutting of the harvest, and usually takes place around the time of April. Of course, there is no harvest here in Nottingham, but this is a celebration of getting all the people from different communities under one roof or here at the Old Market Square, having an excellent time despite the dreadful weather that we had this morning. Lots and lots of whistling going on, people singing, as you can probably hear in the background. Lots and lots of food as well. Generally, people having a very, very good time. Well, Jazzy, welcome to Nottingham. What do you think so far, despite the weather?
Yeah, the only disappointing is the weather, and it is my first time, so I'm looking really forward to it. But yeah, so I'm excited.
You've been doing Melas for a very long time, but this is the first time in Nottingham. It isn't that you're performing.
Yeah, it is. I've been obviously in the country for a while, and you know, obviously I don't know if they didn't get around to me or I didn't get around to them, but as I said, I'm very excited to perform in front of the Nottingham audience.
It's a very different definition of Mela in Nottingham compared to India, isn't it? Because you go to India and you got stalls of bangles and handicrafts and mithaiya and all sorts of things happening over there, whereas not so much so here in Nottingham.
Yeah, but hopefully we will, you know, in the future. You know, that's what we're trying to do, get all the communities together and, you know, share each other culture. That's what the whole point of the melas are. You know, you get new talents, you know, this first time performing on stage and people get to know, and hopefully, yeah, in the future you will see bangles and carved stuff in Nottingham as well.
Now, you actually are from Canada, you spent some time in the UK, but very much at the moment settled in India, isn't it?
Yeah, well, kind of basically living on a plane now, you know, always traveling, but you know, I think I consider myself lucky. It's not a 9-to-5 job, but you know, it's like you get to see the whole world and meet different people, different culture, and you know, little kids and everybody kind of like, you know, support your culture and your music. So it's wonderful.
Kaval there talking to Jazzy B and capturing the atmosphere of the 21st Nottingham Mela.
जिंदगी का सफर है ये कैसा सफर